सर अब आपको तो मालूम है ना सारा सिस्टम इसका। Good afternoon, friends. Myself, CA Raj Chawla, organizer of this webinar. Today, our topic is business valuation, and our guest faculty, CA Pranav Goyal ji, a very eminent speaker on this valuation and experienced. So, and I request Pranav ji to please start his deliberation.
Thank you, sir. I'll just start by sharing my screen first. So good evening, everyone. I hope all of you are doing well and taking care of yourselves during this lockdown period. This lockdown period in some way has provided us with a very good opportunity for learning. And I'm very thankful to CA Raj Chawla ji, who let me present my views on valuation. So
And one thing more I want to share with my members, please, sure. Please mark your queries in our question and answer icon, because we will take queries after this PPT is completed. ठीक है ना sir? So please you start your
So as I said, in this webinar, I would be discussing about the emerging valuation opportunities in India. And I'll give a brief overview as to what will be the COVID-19 impact on the valuations. So before starting that, I'll just give a brief overview of the valuation scenario in India. So it has been more than a year since the valuation spectrum has been formally regulated by the government as a professional practice. Till now, in most cases, chartered accountants or SEBI registered merchant bankers have been predominantly conducting valuations in India. However, recently from 1st of February 2019, no one other than an IBBI registered valuer is authorized to conduct valuations under the applicable provisions of the Companies Act, the IBC and the SEBI regulations. All these three statutory regulations have defined valuer as a person who is a registered valuer under section 247 of the Companies Act. Basically 1st February 2019 onwards से जो भी valuations होंगी Companies Act में, IBC code में, SEBI regulations में, वो सारी valuations registered valuer के through ही होंगी. Registered valuer जो हैं basically 3 asset classes में IBBI ने define करे हैं. पहला हो गया land and building. तो जो हमारे civil engineers हैं, they are basically become the land and building valuers. Second asset class is the plant and machinery. जो हमारे mechanical engineers हैं, they basically become the SFA, the PNM registered valuers. And तीसरे हो गए हम लोग जो chartered accountants, cost accountants, basically people who are doing the valuation of the securities and financial assets. So in this webinar, I shall be deliberating about the scope of regulatory valuations in India under various statutes like Companies Act, Income Tax Act, RBI regulations, SEBI regulations, and Ind AS. Since in India there is a plethora of statutes and regulations, therefore any professional, be it in practice or in industry, is required to know when the valuation report is mandatorily required under the different statutes. Any non-compliance from not obtaining the valuation report can attract heavy penalties for your client as well as for your organization. With the advent of UDINs now, it has become all the more necessary to take the valuation reports at the time when the valuation event is being triggered, because now backdating of valuation reports is next to impossible. So the valuation report in this webinar, I am going to discuss as to when the valuation requirement is triggered, wherever the same transaction can hit different statutory provisions at the same time. So majorly the valuation is required in the following circumstances or the following scenarios. First being the fresh issue of shares or securities. Second being the transfer of shares. Third being business combinations or merger valuations. Fourth being employee stock options or sweat equity. Fifth being the IBC valuations. And sixth and the last being the financial reporting or the Ind AS valuations. So let us start with the fresh issue of shares and convertible instruments. So as we all know, in India, all Indian companies are governed by the provisions of the Companies Act. Section 62(1)(c) of the Companies Act 2013, read with Rule 13 of the Companies Rules, has a requirement to obtain a valuation report from a registered valuer in case of fresh issue of shares and convertible securities. अब क्वेश्चन ये है कि ये कन्वर्टेबल सिक्योरिटीज क्या होती हैं? Basically, convertible securities are those securities which initially are issued like a debt instrument, for example, like a compulsory convertible debenture. So this instrument is initially issued like a debt instrument, which has an interest bearing like a loan, but on some subsequent triggering event, like listing of the company or any other event, this CCD shall convert to an equity share. So this is primarily a convertible instrument. Nowadays, people who are dealing in corporates, they must be, if they're analyzing the balance sheets, they would be seeing a lot of convertible instruments issued by such companies. The very common examples of such convertible instruments are CCDs, which are compulsory convertible debentures, CCPS, cumulative compulsory preference shares, OCD, optionally convertible debentures, optionally convertible redeemable preference shares, are just a few of the examples. Moving on. So we are talking about the governing provisions where in case of fresh issue of shares and convertible instruments, as per Companies Act, when is a valuation report required? So when section 62(1)(c) read with Rule 13, read with section 42, basically it means that whenever there is a fresh issue of equity shares under a private placement, then in that case, a valuation by a registered valuer under the Companies Act is required. The value so obtained becomes the minimum price of the shares under the Companies Act. These governing provisions are applicable to both residents as well as non-residents. The valuation by registered valuer needs to be undertaken in accordance with the company's valuation rules. Rule 13 जो है वो specify करता है कि preferential allotment of listed companies जब भी होगा, then SEBI regulations need to be followed. It is also clarified that where shares or other securities are to be allotted for consideration other than cash, then the valuation of such considerations shall be done by a registered valuer. Here, wherever I use the term registered valuer, that means a person who is a registered valuer under the IBBI as per section 247 of the Companies Act. In case of issue of convertible securities, the Companies Act gives the option to determine the valuation of resultant shares at the time of conversion of such securities, provided that this option is exercised at the time of offer of such securities itself. In simple terms मैं आपको बता दूं, basically जब भी कंपनी फ्रेश इशू ऑफ शेयर्स करेगी और जब भी प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट होगा, तब उस केस में वो इशू करेगी या तो रेजिडेंट को या नॉन रेजिडेंट को. उस केस में प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट होना जरूरी है. उस केस में रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट इज मैंडेटरी. ठीक है. Practically, we see a lot of questions that people ask that is a valuation report required in case of a rights issue? The answer is no. Valuation report as per the Companies Act is concerned is not required from a registered valuer when the company goes in for a rights issue. To summarize, the requirement of a registered valuer when there is a fresh issue of shares or convertible instrument, the first point is that there must be private placement and not rights issue. For listed companies, SEBI regulations need to be followed. Where shares or other securities are offered for a consideration other than cash, the value so obtained, this is important, the value so obtained becomes the minimum price as per the Companies Act. Now we get a lot of queries in our valuation practice that whenever we get a report from a registered valuer for fresh issue of equity shares, is that if let's say the value obtained, the fair value as per the valuation report is 50 rupees, a lot of corporates come back to us and say, they ask that whether this is the minimum price or the maximum price, can I issue above this? Yes. So the point to be considered here for all practical purposes is that this valuation sets the minimum price. There is no limitation on issuing shares above this as per the Companies Act. But you need to take into consideration the impact of Income Tax Act as well. We're going to discuss that in detail as to how the valuations impact the income tax, how the valuation provisions are governed in the Income Tax Act. But as far as Companies Act goes, then this valuation is the minimum price. Next, these governing provisions are also applicable to both residents and non-residents. So whenever a resident and a non-resident both are raising the shares and there is a private placement, in that case, a valuation report by a registered valuer is required. For convertible instruments like CCD, in my view, it is better to give the valuation of the resultant shares at the time of the offer of the securities itself. For example, if the company is issuing a CCD, in that case, when you go in for a private placement, then when you obtain a valuation report from a registered valuer, in that please ensure that the valuer has given both the values, the fair value of the CCD as well as the fair value of the resultant of the equity shares, assuming that they're converting at the time of the offer of securities itself. This I'll explain to you in the next upcoming slides that why am I clarifying on this. So this entirety sums up the fresh issue of shares and convertible instruments under the Companies Act, the valuation requirements. Moving on to the governing provisions regarding the fresh issue of shares and other securities under the Income Tax Act. Now, under the Income Tax Act, there are provisions relating to taxability of issue of shares, of unquoted shares, wherein if the shares have been allotted above the FMV, then the difference between the FMV of the shares and the price at which they have been issued will be taxable in the hands of the company which issues these shares. However, we need to see that the provisions of section 5627B are applicable to whom? The provisions of section 5627B are not applicable to non-residents, and they also do not get retracted to public listed companies. 5627B deals with the provision and valuation formula and conditions that have been explained in Rule 11 UA2 of the Income Tax Rules 1962. The value so obtained becomes the maximum price for the issue of shares under the Income Tax Act. And the difference between the issue price and the FMV is taxable in the hands of the company as income from other sources. We need to also take into consideration that 5627B also does not apply where consideration for issue of shares is received by a venture capital undertaking from a venture capital company or a venture capital fund. In a landmark judgment of Sudhir Menon, HUF versus Assistant CIT Mumbai, it was held that provisions of section 56 are not applicable on bonus or rights issue where the shareholding pattern does not change. Further, Ministry of Commerce through DPIT notification number dated 19th February 2019 had provided some relief to eligible startups that meet the following specified conditions. That first, that it must be recognized by DPIT. Second, that the aggregate amount of paid up share capital and share premium of the startup after the issue or proposed issue of shares, if any, does not exceed 25 crores. However, in order to check the diversion of funds, it is further provided that startups shall not invest in any of the specified assets given in that notification for a period of 7 years. So we need to know that when a company is issuing fresh shares or securities, as per the Income Tax Act, section 5627B is applicable to whom and what are the governing provisions related to that. Moving on, what will be the valuation methodology? Now, this is very important. The Income Tax Act does not prescribe anywhere the valuation methodology. You can use DCF or NAV method or any method to which the AO must be satisfied. Basically, the objective is the computation of fair value, the price it would fetch if sold in the open market. Now, who can do the valuation? For income tax purposes, if I choose the DCF method, then my valuation has to be done by exclusively by a SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker only. Earlier in June, I think 2018 or 17, I'm not wrong, earlier chartered accountants were also given an option to use the DCF method, but due to the quality of reports received by the department, the CAs were unfortunately striked off from this, and only category 1 merchant bankers were allowed to do valuations. With the advent of registered valuers from 1st of February 2019, the RVOs across India have been pushing the finance ministry to at least include the registered valuers of SFA class in this income tax valuations, as you can very well understand that for a same transaction, that is a fresh issue of shares. So let's say if a company is making a fresh issue of shares to a resident investor, and in that case there's a private placement, so the same company will have to take two valuation reports. One is the valuation report by registered valuer for Companies Act purposes, and another same if it uses DCF method, a register valuation report from a category 1 merchant banker. So it's just duplication of the same report two times. Companies Act defines a registered valuer only, and income tax says only SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker. So for the same event, there are multiplicity of valuation reports that are required in the current scenario. So there is a very big need that all these statutes should align themselves, wherein the valuer is defined as a registered valuer, like it has been done for Companies Act, IBC, and SEBI regulations. In the same way, income tax and FEMA also need to add this. Or I'll just digress from the main topic here. Recently, the government has introduced a draft valuers bill also, wherein the government is quite serious about setting up a valuation institute and bringing valuation, introducing valuation as a profession on the same lines of ICAI, like they are introducing a 4-year course and a 2-year course in valuation. So I believe that valuation with IBBI coming into the picture is growing. It's still in very early stages, but still it's growing as a profession. And with the advent of all this draft valuers bill, I feel that all these statutes must be aligned, and the valuation requirement per se must be uniform. The valuer per se must be uniform, but till now there's no such amendment that has taken place. Unless no amendment comes, so you will have no other option but to take two valuation reports, one from a registered valuer, one from a SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker. So to summarize, the requirement of valuation when there is a fresh issue of shares or convertible instruments under the Income Tax Act is that there must be a fresh issue of shares made to a resident individual only. The 5627B does not apply to non-residents, publicly listed companies, VC undertakings, eligible startups, bonus and rights issues when there is no change in shareholding pattern. In case of application of DCF method, valuation has to be done exclusively by a SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker. And in case of application of NAV method, it is not prescribed as to who shall do the valuation. So in terms of when I'm doing a fresh issue of equity shares, a lot of queries come to us that whether as per income tax also a valuation report by a registered valuer is required if I'm following the NAV method. The answer to it is a no. There is no requirement in the statute or the regulatory provisions that require a mandatory valuation report to be done by a registered valuer only if the company is following the NAV method or Rule 11 UA is being followed. The management can on their own also calculate the value of the fair value of the share, and if they're adopting that and utilize that and use that value, and allot those shares on basis on that value. There is no requirement for taking a valuation report, strictly speaking from the income tax point of view. Moving on to the next governing provisions. So now we're going to, we have discussed about the valuation regulatory provisions with respect to fresh issue of shares for Companies Act perspective and for Income Tax Act perspective. And now we are going to go into the RBI regulations for issue and transfer of shares. So whenever there is a issue or transfer of equity shares or compulsory convertible instruments of an Indian company is taking place between Indian resident and non-resident, then FDI valuation gets triggered. It is stated that in case of an unlisted Indian company, the rights issued to persons resident outside India shall not be at a price less than the price offered to person resident in India. In case of a listed Indian company, the rights issued to person resident outside India shall be at a price determined by the company. An Indian company may issue equity shares or compulsory convertible instruments to a person resident outside India under the FDI policy as per the FEMA rules of 2019 in compliance with the pricing guidelines. Now, what are these pricing guidelines? The pricing guidelines are basically mentioned in clause 21 and 23 of the FEMA rules of 2019. They specify that the price or conversion formula of convertible capital instruments is required to be determined upfront at the time of issue of instrument. If you remember, at the time of issuance of shares of Companies Act regulations, when I was talking about in terms of convertible instruments, that you should take two valuations. When you are taking a valuation report for a compulsory convertible instrument of, discuss the example of CCD. So when you're taking a fair valuation report of a CCD, and if you're raising funds from a non-resident investor, so you will have to look at Companies Act and you will have to look at RBI, FEMA regulations also. So in that case, since the FEMA regulations require me to determine a conversion formula or a price ratio, swap ratio upfront, therefore it is mandatory as a valuer for me to provide you with the fair value of the equity share also of that business or that company upfront at the time of issue or offer of securities itself. Even though Companies Act gives me an option, but the FEMA regulations, they do not give me an option. So whenever I am issuing a compulsory convertible instrument and there is a non-resident investor, please make sure that you get both the valuations of the instrument as well as the equity. Then, what does the valuation methodology for the issue of shares as per the FDI regulations? Now, for unlisted company, it talks about the internationally accepted pricing methodology. Till a few time back, DCF was something which was written instead of internationally accepted pricing methodology. But the FEMA also, in order to align themselves globally with the other regulatory bodies, it removed DCF and it inserted internationally accepted pricing methodology. Now, what is this internationally accepted pricing methodology? Now, be it the ICAI valuation standard, be it the international valuation standards, all of them talk about three main approaches: the cost approach, the income approach, and the market approach. So a valuation which is done as per all these three approaches or any of the three approaches will tantamount to an internationally accepted pricing methodology. So for unlisted companies, whenever there is a fresh issue of shares, you have to make sure that your internationally accepted pricing methodology is being considered. Please make sure that Rule 11 UA2 is not an internationally accepted pricing methodology. I have seen practically cases where people have applied Rule 11 UA2 as a formula or as a basis for doing their valuation. That is not the correct way. That is not an internationally accepted pricing methodology when you talk about the FEMA regulations. So the cost approach, income approach, or the market approach are the three broadly accepted valuation pricing methodologies. You have to apply them only, then the report shall stand valid. So who shall do the valuation? In case of FDI, the fair valuation has to be done as per the internationally accepted pricing methodology. In case of unlisted companies, by a chartered accountant or a SEBI registered merchant banker. So in this, as I was saying before, the FEMA regulations have still not introduced the concept of a registered valuer. There, still the valuation can be done still by only by a category 1 merchant banker or by a CA only. All right. Now moving on to the next part, which is the ODI. ODI would be the opposite of FDI. So ODI is what? ODI valuation is what? When does it get triggered? So when an Indian company acquires or transfers shares in a foreign company, then the ODI valuation gets triggered. So under the law, FDI valuation stands at the minimum price and ODI valuation gives you the maximum price. Now, when is a valuation report mandatorily required as per the ODI regulations? So mandatory valuation is required by a SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker only when your investment amount exceeds 5 million USD. Then only in that case, your SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker can do your valuation, or a registered banker in that country in which the investment is being done. Moving on, in case the investment is by way of swap of shares where foreign company is involved, irrespective of the amount, then valuation of shares will have to be made by a category 1 merchant banker with SEBI or an investment banker outside India registered with the appropriate regulatory authority in the host country. So to summarize, the RBI regulations, if there is an issue or transfer of shares to a non-resident, in case of convertible instruments, compulsory convertible instruments, price or conversion formula needs to be determined upfront. Valuation methodology, unlisted company, internationally accepted methodology. Listed company, you have to follow SEBI preferential allotment guidelines. Who can do the valuation? Unlisted company, CA or SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker. If it is an ODI valuation, then 5 million. If the amount exceeds, then only a SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker. If it's less than 5 million, then as per the statute, there is no requirement. But generally, the people who are the chartered accountants or the registered valuers, the corporates try and take the valuation reports from either of them. Now let us discuss an important practical issue which we have seen while doing valuations and which specifically impact these RBI, FDI and ODI valuations. So let's say a company A is an Indian company, okay, and it wants to issue equity shares and CCD to company B, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of company C. Now company C is a company which is based in Singapore. So in this case, will a valuation requirement be, is there a valuation requirement under the FEMA rules? The answer to it is yes. You require a valuation report under the FDI FEMA regulations because your company B is a foreign owned and controlled company. It's a FOCC. So this is a term that is used in terms of wholly owned subsidiary or companies which have their parents abroad. Whenever any company is issuing any instrument, an Indian company is issuing any instrument or security to these FOCCs, then you have to take extreme precaution and care that the valuation report would be required. These RBI FEMA regulations would kick in. So whenever we prepare a valuation report, we focus on the background and the purpose of valuation. So as a valuer, you must know what is your purpose of valuation. Even as an advisor to your client, you must know what is your purpose of valuation, because in India there are different acts and all the same transaction, like an issue of shares from a non-resident, can attract different statutory regulations. Like the Companies Act will be affected, the income tax will be affected, the FEMA regulations will be affected. I'll give you a very simple example. Let's say a company issues a CCD on a private placement basis from a non-resident investor. Okay. So in this case, how many valuation reports will be required? So there is a private placement. So a valuation and a fresh issue of shares. So as per Companies Act, RV report is mandatory. Then moving on, income tax. If I'm following DCF, then yes, I need a valuation report from a category 1 merchant banker. Then moving on to RBI FEMA regulations, I require a valuation report from either a category 1 merchant banker or a CA. So you see that one transaction is affecting so many statutory provisions at the same time. And at the same time, the requirement for valuation reports under the different statutory regulations is there. So extreme care and caution needs to be exercised while you're advising your clients or your organization per se, that whenever you are doing a fresh issue of shares or transfer of shares, you need to be thorough with your regulations and the statutory provisions, because when you're going to file your FCGPRs, then at that point of time you have to make sure that that conversion ratio is there. Otherwise your valuation report doesn't have that conversion ratio, doesn't have both the valuations, then you will have to face a lot of issues while dealing with the RBI people. So that's why it is it is very important and essential to know that what are my valuation requirements and what are the regulatory requirements in India under the different statutes for the same set of transactions, for the same set of scenarios. Moving on, we come to valuation under SEBI norms. So as we all know that all listed companies, publicly listed companies in India are governed by the guidelines of the SEBI. So the fresh issue of shares is covered by the SEBI regulations 2018. So when is the valuation required? So for frequently traded shares, there is no valuation requirement per se from any registered valuer. The valuation would be as per the market price. But for infrequently traded shares, you require a valuation report from a registered valuer, because there you have to see the price of comparable companies, the book value and other valuation parameters. You have to refer to regulation 165. So there the valuation becomes a tricky aspect. So there SEBI has specified that in case of infrequently traded shares, a valuation report needs to be taken by a registered valuer only. Second scenario where a valuation report is required in terms of SEBI regulations is when there's a fixation of price in the public issue or the IPO. That is governed by SEBI ICDR regulations. In that case, a merchant banker is required. In that case, registered valuer is still not there. So I have summarized the issue of shares under various regulations. First, I had talked about the Companies Act. Then I talked about the Income Tax Act. Then I had talked about the FEMA regulations, and then I had talked about the SEBI regulations. तो आपको valuation requirement कब है, कौन से statute में कब raise हो रहा है, issue of shares आप कर रहे हैं तो issue of shares किससे कर रहे हैं, resident investor से raise कर रहे हैं, नॉन रेजिडेंट से रेस कर रहे हैं, रेजिडेंट से कर रहे हैं तो आप क्या प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट हो रहा है, नहीं हो रहा है, प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट हो रहा है तो वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट की रिक्वायरमेंट है. फिर आपका अगर रेजिडेंट से कर रहे हैं तो उस केस में इनकम टैक्स में आप अगर डीसीए फॉलो कर रहे हैं तो मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिक्वायरमेंट है. फिर आप नॉन रेजिडेंट से रेस कर रहे हैं तो फेमा रेगुलेशन सेट हो जाएंगे, वहां पे आपको सीए या कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिक्वायरमेंट है. तो this is the entire that's how I've summed up the issue of shares. So I hope I've been able to being clear on this, and moving on to the next scenario, which is the transfer of shares. So moving on to that, so first we'll take up the transfer of shares, the governing provisions under the Income Tax Act. So the Income Tax Act 1961 has provisions relating to taxability of receipts of assets if shares are transferred below the FMV. Accordingly, the difference between the FMV of the shares and the price at which they have been transferred is taxable in the hands of the recipient of such shares. where the difference amount exceeds 50,000 rupees. The same is taxable under the head income from other sources. The FMV of the shares thus forms the base price for the transfer of shares of any company. Section 56(2)(10) deals with this provisions, and the valuation formula and conditions have been explained in Rule 11 UA. It is further clarified that Section 56(2)(10) applies to both listed and unlisted shares. It may be noted that there may be significant differences in the valuation conclusions under Section 56(2)(10) of the Income Tax Act and the corresponding valuation provisions under the RBI law and the Companies Act. तो basically transfer of shares की जहां बात आती है वहां पे we all know कि income tax ने rule 11 UA एक prescribed formula define कर रखा है. There they have given a specified formula of adjusted NAV. Adjusted NAV में वो बोलता है कि book value of the company on a specified valuation date less the book value of land and building, jewelry, shares and securities at the fair market value of land and building, jewelries, and उस specified formula के basis पे एक adjusted NAV निकल जाती है, उसके basis पे वो transfer of shares कर सकते हैं. So as per valuation provisions, as far as they go, there is for in respect of equity shares, there is no requirement, there is nobody who is prescribed कि आपको valuation जो है वो registered valuer से ही कराना है या फिर आपको SEBI registered merchant banker से कराना है. इस केस में जब आप ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं for income tax purposes only, I'll repeat that again, for income tax purposes only, आप as a management खुद भी adjusted NAV के फॉर्मूले के हिसाब से आप खुद भी ये वैल्यूएशन कर सकते हैं और अपनी फाइल में ये लगा सकते हैं. फॉर शेयर्स अदर देन इक्विटी शेयर्स, चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट्स और सेबी रजिस्टर्ड कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिक्वायरमेंट. तो अगर कोई और इंस्ट्रूमेंट है अदर देन इक्विटी शेयर्स उसको ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं तो उस केस में आपको सीए या मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिपोर्ट की रिक्वायरमेंट होगी. अब 56(2)(10) में जब हम वैल्यूएशन करते हैं तो वी शुड बी वेरी वेल केयरफुल as to what is the balance sheet date and the valuation date. 56(2)(10) में जो वो balance sheet date की बात करता है वो बात करता है audited financial statements की. तो जिस डेट को मैं ट्रांसफर कर रहा हूँ उस डेट की मुझे बैलेंस शीट ड्रॉप करनी पड़ेगी, उसका ऑडिट कराना पड़ेगा. जब वो ऑडिटेड बैलेंस शीट के नंबर्स को ही मैं कंसिडर कर पाऊंगा अपनी 56(2)(10) की वैल्यूएशन पर्पसेस के लिए. एक मैनेजमेंट सर्टिफाइड प्रोविजनल बैलेंस शीट वुड नॉट बी अ गुड बेसिस फॉर डूइंग योर वैल्यूएशन फॉर ट्रांसफर ऑफ शेयर्स अंडर सेक्शन 56(2)(10). सो इस बात का ध्यान रखिएगा कि जब भी 56(2)(10) अट्रैक्ट होता है जो बैलेंस शीट की बात होती है वो आपका ऑडिटेड बैलेंस शीट की बात हो रही है. देन देयर आर सम अदर सेक्शंस आल्सो अंडर द इनकम टैक्स एक्ट which talk about the valuation requirements. जैसे section 50CA है, 50D है, transfer pricing provisions है. 50CA बात करता है valuation की NAV, adjusted NAV पे. फिर आपका transfer pricing section 92C है. Suppose करिए आपकी international transaction हो रही है, आपकी foreign company से shares issue हो रहे हैं, तो उस केस में जब भी अलॉटमेंट ऑफ शेयर्स हो रहा है तो वो फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू पे हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है, क्योंकि कई बार राइट्स इशू होता है. तो राइट्स इशू में ऑल्दो रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है, बट ट्रांसफर प्राइसिंग में जब कंपनीज को टीपी स्टडी करानी होती है तो उस केस में द कंपनीज हैव टू कैलकुलेट द एफएमवी. तो एफएमवी कैलकुलेशन के वहां पे रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर या फिर चार्टर्ड अकाउंटेंट या फिर कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिक्वायरमेंट अराइज हो जाती है. Other provisions are the indirect transfer of assets. Last to last budget may, if we all know that as per section 9 of the Income Tax Act, any capital gains arising to a non-resident on transfer of shares of a foreign company, if such shares derives its value substantially from assets located in India, is deemed to accrue or arise. तो section 9 जहाँ hit करता है और जहाँ ये prescribed conditions hit करती हैं वहाँ पे भी अब valuation requirements की necessity arise हो जाती है. So in this way I have summarized in these tables कि कहाँ income tax में issue and transfer of shares or securities होती है. तो wherever a valuation requirement is there by a merchant banker or a SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker or a registered valuer or the management. So you need to carefully analyze as to what is your transaction, which provisions, which governing provisions are affecting you, and who is supposed to do the valuation, and what will be the valuation methodology that is being adopted. That valuation methodology is internationally accepted or not, whether that internationally accepted methodology complies with your regulatory provisions or not. So all these things need to be looked into very much in detail, because the cost of non-compliance of these provisions is very high. जो नॉन कंप्लायंस की मैं बात कर रहा हूँ, तो सेक्शन 4210 बात करता है कि द पेनल्टीज, अगर हम वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट नहीं लेते हैं, if we don't take a valuation report from a registered valuer, or we do not comply with these valuation provisions, then the penalty is as much as the amount received, or 2 crores, whichever is higher. And in addition to that, you even have to refund the amount of money that you have received. So be very careful while you are assessing the requirement of valuation. So generally जो company secretaries हैं, companies may, they should pay very much attention, lot of attention as to which statutory provisions are being affected. Moving on to valuation for mergers and acquisitions. So basically जब भी मेरा कोई merger होता है, demerger होता है, whenever there is a business amalgamation, so in order to compute the swap exchange ratio, I need a registered valuer's report. In case of demerger, the share entitlement ratio is worked upon in lieu of the share swap ratio. Having fair valuation is essential for protection of the shareholders of each company. The same is subject to scrutiny by minority and institutional shareholders and also other regulators. Section 230 to 236 specifies the events wherein the valuation is required to be done only by a registered valuer. Under SEBI Circular number 21, dated March 31st, March 10, 2017, valuation by independent chartered accountant is mandatory other than those specifically exempted. It is further clarified that valuation report from an independent chartered accountant is not required in cases where there is no change in the shareholding pattern of the listed company or the resulting company. So the Companies Act, even though has mandated the requirement of a valuation from a registered valuer, however, SEBI has yet not modified this circular, mandating valuation to be done by a CA. Hence, for merger purposes, ये ध्यान रखिए that valuation report must be obtained by a registered valuer who is also a CA. Because multiplicity of compliance cost आपकी increase हो जाएगी. You will just have to if you are taking a registered valuer report who is not a CA, then you will have to again take a valuation report from a chartered accountant separately for the same event. So for business combinations, for mergers and acquisitions, please keep this thing in mind, that whenever you're taking a registered valuer's report, that person must be a CA. Moving on to the next valuation scenario, the valuation for employee stock option plans. Now, what is an ESOP? So ESOP is a plan through which a company awards stock options to its employees based on their performance. An employee stock option is a call option, meaning that under ESOP, the employees have the right and not an obligation to buy the shares of a company on a predetermined date at a predetermined price. The objective of the ESOP is to motivate the employees to perform better and improve shareholder value. Apart from giving financial gains to the employees, the ESOP also gives a great sense of belonging and ownership amongst the employees. So ESOP valuation जो है ये काफी critical है और काफी typical भी है as a valuation professional, क्योंकि इसमें जो है it is like a call option, जहाँ पे employees के पास right होता है कि वो उस option को exercise करें या ना करें. Basically company के employees को shares खरीदने के options मिलते हैं कि वो company के shares को at below the market price, they can purchase that shares and they can sell it in the open market. So it's basically like a perquisite. So when is the ESOP valuation required? So ESOP valuation is required for accounting purposes for booking compensation loss in the profit and loss account by company issuing ESOPs. ESOP accounting valuation is performed at the time of grant of options and is apportioned over the vesting period. It is clarified that as per Ind AS 102, that for equity settled ESOPs, fair value of the ESOP is issued at a grant date and the cost is amortized over the life of the option and corresponding entry is made to the equity account. Or on the other hand, if they are cash settled, then the fair value of the option is assessed at each reporting date and recorded as a liability. In simpler terms, जब भी ESOP, whenever the company is issuing ESOP, and whether they are equity settled or cash settled, then for Ind AS purposes, I need to fair value the option. I need to fair value my ESOPs. If they are cash settled, then that fair valuation of that ESOP option has to happen at each reporting date. Meaning thereby, if I am closing quarterly, then at each end of each quarter, I need to do a specific fair valuation of my ESOP. If I'm closing my books annually, then at the end of each annual end financial year. So this is a very, very critical component of valuation, and only experienced valuers can do these ESOP valuations because it's very, very technical and very, very typical. It derives itself from Black-Scholes model, binomial model. You need to give those weights. So it's primarily goes to your option valuations. So all those companies which issue the ESOPs, so your valuation as per Ind AS requires you to fair value of option at the end of each financial reporting period. So that's where the valuation is required. Then coming on to the income tax part of it, the tax impact on the perquisite value needs to be determined at the time of the exercise of the options. So the compensation expense reduces the EPS of the company, and the possibility of excess tax payout may turn the ESOP scheme unattractive. So who can do the ESOP valuation for the income tax purposes? As per section 17(2) of the Income Tax Act, only a SEBI registered category 1 merchant banker is authorized to do a ESOP valuation of a company. In this case, registered valuer की requirement नहीं है. There is no, for the income tax purposes, there is no as such requirement to engage a registered valuer. In that case, only a SEBI registered merchant banker needs to be engaged. But practically we see, since the valuation of an ESOP is a very, very complex exercise, so all the corporates, they take the services of professional valuers and experienced valuers who have a good track record or a decent track record in doing the ESOP valuation. Because trust me, it's not an easy job to fair value your employee stock options. You have to look at the ESOP scheme. Earlier I had mentioned that it is a call option. Nowadays I'm seeing the ESOP schemes where it is not a call option. It is like a call option is there, a put option is there. So both the scenarios are there. So as a valuer, it gets very, very difficult to assess the option valuation on the valuation date. So moving on to the next scenario, we're going to talk about the CIRP valuation, or the insolvency resolution, IBC valuation, so to speak. So regulation 27 and regulation 35 are the primary two regulations which are governed basically the valuation under IBC are governed primarily by regulation 27 and 35. So IBC, wherever it talks about valuations, the reference it will make is to a registered valuer. So let us understand the concept of valuations in the IBC proceedings. So the registered valuer, as per regulation 27, the resolution professional, within 7 days of his appointment shall appoint 2 registered valuers of each asset class. So there are 3 asset classes, as I told you in the beginning. One is the SFA class, one is your plant and machinery, and one is your land and building. So the resolution professional shall appoint 2 registered valuers of different asset classes. So in total, he'll be appointing 6 registered valuers to determine the fair value and the liquidation value. So when we do a CIRP valuation, in that case, we are supposed to give 2 valuations. One is a fair valuation and one is a liquidation valuation. each person of each asset class has to give both these values, the fair value and the liquidation value. The registered valuers cannot be a relative, a related party, an auditor, a partner, or director. Further, as per regulation 35, the fair value and the liquidation value needs to be determined. So why are there two valuers? Basically, the objective of appointing two valuers is that there should not be a significant difference between the valuation arrived at by those two valuers. If they, as per the opinion of the two valuers, the value of the company is vastly different, then the valuation resolution professional shall engage a third valuer. Because you see, valuation is a very subjective. There's a lot of subjectivity and a lot of professional judgment that is involved in doing valuations. No two valuers can arrive at the same value, because a lot of it is dependent on future cash flows, assumptions, your discount rate. Even a different discount rate chosen by one valuer vis-a-vis the other valuer can have significant impact on the fair value, liquidation value, other valuations of the company. So in order to basically bring uniformity in valuation so that there is not much discrepancy, the IBC regulations mandate the appointment of two registered valuers of the same asset class. So in total, there will be 6 registered valuers for the same company. Now, in IBC valuations, I'll just touch this base. Basically, as a valuer, we will only be valuing the assets. We are only concerned with the assets, and we do not do a liability valuation. So what we are going to assess as per valuers for IBC valuations is just the fair value and the liquidation value of my assets only. I will not look into the liabilities, or I will not value the business as the whole. Moving on, the next valuation requirement would arise in case of liquidation. So if your resolution plan is not accepted and the company further moves into liquidation, then in that case, also your liquidation valuation gets triggered. In that case, a registered valuer again would need to be engaged, and a valuation report would need to be taken. Finally, moving on to my financial reporting valuation requirements. So as we all know, for decades, India has been doing accounting on historical cost basis, but with the introduction of Ind AS or IFRS, with the new convergence of IFRS, I would say the corporates are in the process of transitioning from IGAAP to Ind AS. So Ind AS primarily talks about fair valuation, substance over legal from principle rather than rule-based accounting. So with the introduction of Ind AS, a lot of my assets, my financial assets in particularly, since I have an SFA valuer, my financial assets in particularly from a holder's perspective have to be valued at fair value. So all these companies and the huge corporates that issue these convertible instruments, and the holders of these instruments, these CCDs, these OCDs, if you see a fair valuation of all these instruments need to be done on the valuation date or on the balance sheet closing date. Although there is no requirement as such that the valuation needs to be done by a registered valuer only. And we have given our representations as RVOs that we should include the registered valuers also in this valuation exercise. But since these valuation of these instruments is a very, very complex exercise, therefore the corporates, they tend to prefer to engage valuation professionals or valuation experts while they are doing the fair valuation of these instruments, because a wrong fair valuation can give a very wrong result, and it will give a very wrong picture to the readers of those financial statements, especially the listed companies. So therefore, Ind AS valuation, even globally, IFRS valuation is a huge, huge avenue for budding valuers also, wherein there is a lot of work that can come to prospective valuers, to existing valuers, even though it's not required by the act, but still the company, when it's going for a first time convergence, when it's reporting at fair value, especially your ESOP valuations or your complex compound financial instruments, the term that is used in Ind AS. If you're doing that valuations, then it would be preferred by a corporate that they would engage the services of an valuation expert. So this is a very big area wherein a valuation as a profession can be seen, and there is a lot of scope of work in this area specifically. So I think I've covered all the valuation, all the scenarios broadly wherein the valuation report would be required. I think I missed on one other scenario is the buyback of shares. So will a valuation report be required in case of buyback of shares? So the question is that, as if we look at the Companies Act point of view, I don't think the valuation report is required by a registered valuer. But when I look at the provisions of the Income Tax Act, especially Section 115 QA of the Income Tax Act, as per the CBDT rules, only when the shares are issued under ESOP or sweat equity, then the FMV of those shares needs to be determined by the Category 1 merchant banker. So with this, I have summarized in a way these various scenarios and the various regulatory provisions as to where the valuation provisions would be required. And maybe I can move on to the next topic, because the next topic deals with the valuation impact, the COVID impact on valuations.
तो प्रणव जी, क्या हम अभी तक क्वेरीज ले लें नेक्स्ट टॉपिक से पहले?
Sure.
या एक साथ ही ले लें लास्ट में?
नहीं सर, वी कैन टेक,
थोड़ा सा आपको भी ब्रेक हो जाएगा।
हाँ,
क्योंकि 4 क्वेरीज हैं, मैं बोलता हूँ, आप भी देख सकते हैं Q&A में जाके। गौरव गुप्ता जी का क्वेश्चन है, हाउ टू वैल्यूएट फॉर स्टार्टअप कंपनीज?
सो सर, स्टार्टअप कंपनीज की जो वैल्यूएशन है वो अपने में ही एक काफी बड़ा एरिया है. So basically, when I am doing a valuation and we talk about the methodologies of valuation, so हमारा ICAI valuation standards हो गए या हमारे international valuation standards हो गए, all of them talk about 3 major approaches: the cost approach, the income approach, and the market approach. So in terms of startup companies, I'll have to look at their business model, their future cash flows, the industry that they are operating in. Basis that, I'll have to calculate a cost of capital. Future cash flows का effect लेना पड़ेगा. Basis that, income approach अगर मैं लगाना चाहता हूँ, then I'll use that DCF valuation जिसे कहते हैं. अगर मैं उस startup की market approach से valuation करना चाहता हूँ, then I'll look at comparables कि उस industry की comparable companies, listed comparables क्या हैं. एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ, जैसे स्टार्टअप कंपनी है, जैसे हम इसी जूम की बात कर लेते हैं. जैसे जूम कंपनी की अगर मैं वैल्यूएशन करने लगूंगा और कंपैरेटिवली अगर मैं जैसे स्टार्ट करूंगा इसका वैल्यूएशन, तो मैं पहले देखूंगा कि इसके कैश फ्लोज हिस्टोरिकल कितने थे और फ्यूचर में इसके कितने कैश फ्लोज होंगे. तो उसके लिए मुझे उसका डिटेल्ड बिजनेस मॉडल देखना पड़ेगा, बनाना पड़ेगा. उसके रेवेन्यू ड्राइवर्स क्या हैं, उसके कॉस्ट ड्राइवर्स क्या हैं, उसका जीपी क्या है, उसका एनपी क्या है. फिर उसको इंडस्ट्री से कंपेयर करूंगा, कंपेरेबल्स निकालूंगा, कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल असर्टेन करूंगा. तो ये वैल्यूएशन ऑफ स्टार्टअप अपने में एक वेबिनार अलग से लेना पड़ेगा सर इसके लिए. तो
ठीक है सर, नेक्स्ट वीक में आप कोई कन्वीनियंट टाइम बता दीजिएगा. हम अपने मेंबर्स से
क्योंकि वैल्यूएशन सर एक आर्ट है, इट्स नॉट अ साइंस. मतलब एक वैल्यूअर और दूसरा वैल्यूअर कभी भी सेम वैल्यू नहीं निकाल के देगा, क्योंकि काफी कुछ अजम्पशन बेस्ड है, काफी कुछ आपका जजमेंट बेस्ड है. किसी इंडस्ट्री में आपको, अब जैसे आपको लगेगा कि ये इंडस्ट्री 5% से ग्रो करनी चाहिए, बस दूसरे वैल्यूअर को लगेगा नहीं ये इंडस्ट्री 10% से ग्रो करनी चाहिए. तो वही उसी अजम्पशन माइनर चेंज में ही मेरी वैल्यूएशन जो है वो मेजरली इम्पैक्ट हो जाएगी.
जी चलिए सर.
तो इट इज क्वाइट आई मीन एक अलग सेमिनार लेना पड़ेगा सर स्टार्टअप कंपनीज पे, एंड इफ यू अलाउ सर वी कैन टेक दिस अप।
नेक्स्ट वीक बना लेंगे सर।
श्योर सर, श्योर।
एक क्वेश्चन हो रहा है, वेदर वैल्यूएशन बाय ए रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर इज नॉट रिक्वायर्ड इन केस ऑफ राइट इशू वेयर शेयर्स आर इशूड एट प्रीमियम।
अगर सर स्ट्रिक्टली मैं कंपनीज एक्ट की बात करूं तो उस केस में अगर मैं राइट्स इशू कर रहा हूं तो मुझे रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है। बट यहाँ मैंने जैसे पहले भी डेलिब्रेट किया था कि हमें एक एक्ट को नहीं देखना चाहिए, हमें जब भी फ्रेश इशू कर रहे हैं वी हैव टू लुक एट एवरीथिंग इन एंटायरिटी। अभी क्वेश्चन थोड़ा इनकम्प्लीट है, मतलब आपको ये देखना पड़ेगा कि फ्रेश इशू किससे हो रहा है, रेजिडेंट इन्वेस्टर से हो रहा है या नॉन रेजिडेंट इन्वेस्टर से हो रहा है। अगर रेजिडेंट इन्वेस्टर इन्वॉल्व है तो उस केस में आपका चाहे यहाँ पे रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर राइट्स इशू से आउट हो जाता है, बट अगर आप डीसीए फॉलो कर रहे हो तो आपको सेबी रजिस्टर्ड कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिपोर्ट लेनी पड़ेगी। एंड फर्दर अगर आप नॉन रेजिडेंट से रेज कर रहे हैं फंड्स तो उस केस में आपको सीए और रजिस्टर्ड कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर से लेनी पड़ेगी। तो इवन दो राइट्स इशू में एग्जेम्पशन आ जाती है मेरे पास रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की, बट हैविंग सेड दैट आपको सारे एक्ट्स और सारे प्रोविजंस को कंबाइंडली देखना पड़ेगा।
एक क्वेश्चन है, वेदर इन राइट इशू केस सेक्शन 56(2) within bracket 7B आर नॉट अट्रैक्टेड।
सर मैं इनकम टैक्स एक्सपर्ट नहीं हूं तो इस केस में मेरे हिसाब से अगर राइट्स इशू हो रहा है और 56(2)(7B, मैंने जो जजमेंट का एग्जांपल दिया था उसमें वो सुधीर मेनन में वो केस था कि अगर मैं कोई फ्रेश इशू कर रहा हूं और राइट्स इशू कर रहा हूं और उस केस में मेरा बोनस शेयर हो रहा है, शेयर होल्डिंग पैटर्न अगर मेरा चेंज नहीं हो रहा है तो उस केस में मेरा 56(2)(7B अट्रैक्ट नहीं होता। बट अगर मैं राइट्स इशू कर रहा हूं और शेयर होल्डिंग पैटर्न चेंज हो रहा है तो I'll get back to this because I'm not an income tax expert, but मेरे हिसाब से शायद ये 56(2)(7B अट्रैक्ट हो जाए।
चलिए ग्रुप पे, हमारे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे आप प्लीज ये क्वेरी डाल दीजिएगा, प्रणव जी बाद में देख के उसको रिप्लाई कर देंगे। विजेंद्र जी का क्वेश्चन है, सर कैन यू सम अप द एप्लीकेबल प्रोविजन ओनली टू प्राइवेट कंपनीज रिगार्डिंग ट्रांसफर एंड इशू ऑफ इक्विटी शेयर्स।
सो जहां पे इशू ऑफ इक्विटी शेयर्स की बात आती है सर, वहां पे मैंने दोबारा बता देता हूँ, इशू ऑफ इक्विटी शेयर अगर मेरा प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट हो रहा है तो आंख बंद करके रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की रिपोर्ट की रिक्वायरमेंट है। जहां भी प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट हो रहा है और फ्रेश इशू हो रहा है, रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर एज पर कंपनीज एक्ट आ गया। सेकंड, अगर डीसीएफ मेथड लगा रहे हैं और रेजिडेंट इन्वेस्टर से फंड्स रेस कर रहे हैं तो कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिक्वायरमेंट है। थर्ड, अगर आप नॉन रेजिडेंट इन्वेस्टर से फंड्स रेस कर रहे हैं उस केस में 56(2)(7B अट्रैक्ट नहीं होगा, बट अगर प्राइवेट प्लेसमेंट हो रहा है तो आपको कैटेगरी 1 रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर से वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट लेना पड़ेगा और एफडीआई रेगुलेशंस के लिए आपको एक सीए या कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर से वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट लेनी पड़ेगी। जहां तक ट्रांसफर ऑफ शेयर्स की बात आती है, अगर रेजिडेंट टू नॉन रेजिडेंट ट्रांसफर होता है तो सीए या कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिक्वायरमेंट आ जाती है। आपको देखना पड़ेगा कि 5 मिलियन से ज्यादा तो नहीं है, क्योंकि कई बारी सर क्या होता है जब हम ओडीआई करते हैं या हम एफडीआई मंगाते हैं तो हमें एफसीजीपीआर फॉर्म भरना पड़ता है और हमें ओडीआई फॉर्म भरना पड़ता है, तो हमारा जो रेगुलेटर या बैंकर होता है वो भी हमें रिक्वायर करता है कि आप वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट दीजिए। तो उस केस में कई बारी स्पेसिफिकली बैंकर दे आस्क फॉर अ वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट इवन दो इट्स नॉट रिक्वायर्ड एज पर द स्टैट्यूटरी प्रोविजन। तो आपको जो है इसके अंदर बहुत क्लियर कट पर्पस ऑफ वैल्यूएशन जो है, मैं अगेन रिपीट करूंगा, पर्पस ऑफ वैल्यूएशन वो बहुत क्लियरली आपको पता होना चाहिए।
एक और क्वेरी है सर, इफ लिस्टेड कंपनी एक्वायरिंग 100% शेयर्स ऑफ एन अनलिस्टेड प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी, then a CA can do the valuation or SEBI valuer required।
अगर लिस्टेड कंपनी अक्वायर करी है 100% शेयर्स ऑफ एन अनलिस्टेड कंपनी,
जी सर,
तो उस केस में सर मैंने पहले भी कहा था सेबी रेगुलेशंस के केस में आइडियल सिनेरियो ये है कि आप उस रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर को अपॉइंट करो जो सीए भी हो। तो आपके दोनों बेसिस कवर हो जाते हैं, क्योंकि वहां पे हम जब वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट देते हैं तो हम यूडेन भी डालते हैं और हम अपना रजिस्टर्ड IBBI रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर का भी वो मेंबरशिप नंबर डालते हैं। तो उस केस में दोनों बेसिस कवर हो जाते हैं। सो दैट इज माय एडवाइस ऑन दिस।
ठीक है सर। कृष्णा जी का क्वेश्चन है, while calculating share price volatility under Black-Scholes model for ESOP valuation, what is the period to consider for calculating volatility?
So this will basically depend on your ESOP scheme. आपकी ESOP scheme से ही आपका जो vesting period है, exercise price है, वो सब डिटरमिन होता है। तो इसको मैं कृष्णा सर की क्वेरी डिटेल में डिस्कस करूंगा, क्योंकि काफी टिपिकल होता है ESOP वैल्यूएशन। अनलेस एंड अनटिल आई डोंट नो द ESOP की जो स्कीम है वो क्या है, आई विल नॉट बी एबल टू गिव अ वेरी डिटेल्ड आंसर। सो आई विल टेक दिस
तो
ऑफ हैंड।
कृष्णा जी आपके पास हमारे प्रणव सर का नंबर, मोबाइल नंबर भी होगा, व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में भी आप होंगे और इनकी ईमेल आईडी भी आपके पास है। आप प्लीज डिटेल में इनसे बाद में बात कर लीजिएगा। थैंक यू। लास्ट क्वेरी है सर दिशांत खट्टर जी की, वेदर इज इट रिक्वायर्ड टू ऑब्टेन वैल्यूएशन फ्रॉम रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर इन केस ऑफ बायबैक ऑफ शेयर्स?
सर एज पर स्टैट्यूटरी प्रोविजन तो रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है। देयर इज नो सच रिक्वायरमेंट एज पर द कंपनीज एक्ट कि मैं जब बायबैक कर रहा हूं तो मुझे रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की रिपोर्ट लेने की रिक्वायरमेंट है। आप एज अ कंपनी भी आप खुद वैल्यूएशन निकाल सकते हैं, FMV डिराइव कर सकते हैं इन टर्म्स ऑफ कंपनीज एक्ट। अगर मैं बात करूं, अगर इनकम टैक्स एक्ट की बात करूं तो सेक्शन 115 QA बात करता है बायबैक की। तो अगर मेरे कंपनी में ESOP है या स्वेट इक्विटी है तो उस केस में ही सिर्फ मुझे कैटेगरी 1 मर्चेंट बैंकर की रिक्वायरमेंट होगी फॉर इनकम टैक्स पर्पसेस। अदरवाइज रिक्वायरमेंट नहीं है। बट मैं फिर भी एडवाइज ये करूंगा लोगों को कि आप, क्योंकि वैल्यूएशन काफी कॉम्प्लेक्स होता है, सो डेफिनेटली यू शुड एंगेज द सर्विसेज ऑफ अ प्रोफेशनल क्वालिफाइड वैल्यूअर। अदरवाइज होता क्या है, इसकी इनकम टैक्स की इम्प्लीकेशन आई थिंक सर आप बेटर जानते होंगे मेरे से इसमें, कि अगर मैं गलत FMV निकाल दूंगा तो मेरी इनकम टैक्स में बहुत हेवी पेनल्टीज मेरे को फेस करनी पड़ेंगी। अगर मैं एक रॉन्ग फेयर वैल्यू निकाल के दे दूं कंपनी की, तो आई वुड स्टिल रेकमेंड कि आप एक प्रोफेशनल सर्विसेज ले, एक रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की जिसको एक्सपीरियंस हो। इवन दो वैल्यूएशन मैंडेटरी नहीं है रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर की, फिर भी जब ये बायबैक की ट्रांजैक्शन होती है, क्योंकि इसका इनकम टैक्स में बहुत मेजर इम्पैक्ट होता है, इसलिए इसमें आपको रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यू की सर्विसेज लेनी चाहिए या किसी एक्सपीरियंस वैल्यूअर की सर्विसेज लेनी चाहिए।
सर एक चैट में क्वेरी है राजीव सिंगला जी की। राजीव सिंगला जी से रिक्वेस्ट है, प्लीज चैट की जगह Q&A में ही क्वेरी डालें ताकि हमारा सिस्टम ठीक बना रहे। तो इनकी क्वेरी है सर, वैल्यूएशन डेट 31st March 19 and share will be transferred on 30th of September 20. Being one promoter want to exit by selling the shares to company and other promoter how to take care the company is unlisted. ये चैट में क्वेरी है सर।
चैट में से दोबारा रिपीट कर देंगे?
हाँ जी। वैल्यूएशन डेट इज 31st March 2019 and share will be transferred on 30th September 20. Being one promoter wants to exit by selling the shares.
सर एक सेकंड में यहीं स्टॉप करूंगा। आप कह रहे हैं वैल्यूएशन डेट इज 31st March एंड ट्रांसफर डेट इज 30th September। तो यहाँ पे क्या इशू, क्या कंपनीज एक्ट अलाउ करता है इतना वेरिएशन? क्योंकि जब आप ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं शेयर्स तो 56(2)(10 शायद अट्रैक्ट करेगा इनकम टैक्स में, तो वहां पे आपको वैल्यूएशन जो है वो ऑडिट करानी पड़ेगी एज ऑन दैट वैल्यूएशन डेट, और तभी आप 56(2)(10 और रूल 11 UA जो हमारा है वो तभी अप्लाई कर पाएंगे। तो आई थिंक यहाँ पे चैलेंज आएगा जब ट्रांसफर कर रहे हैं शेयर्स। अगर 31st March रखूं मैं वैल्यूएशन डेट और ट्रांसफर करूं 30th September में, तो जो 6 महीने का गैप है, और स्पेशली जब कोविड हम देख रहे हैं अभी, तो इम्पैक्ट जो मेरी फेयर वैल्यू आएगी कंपनी की एज ऑन 31st March विजावी जो वैल्यू आएगी 30th September, उसमें मेजर डिफरेंस रहेगा। तो आई डोंट नो, एज अ आई एम नॉट एन इनकम टैक्स एक्सपर्ट, बट मेरे को लगता है कि इनकम टैक्स में इशू आ सकता है इस केस में, जब वैल्यूएशन डेट और ट्रांसफर डेट में इतना डिफरेंस रहेगा।
सर ये क्वेरीज तो ज्यादा आती जाएंगी, नहीं तो फिर आपका आगे का सिस्टम डिस्टर्ब हो
मैं
जाएगा।
ये सारी रूप कुमार जी, नितिन
बस
कपूर, इन सब की सेबी आईसीडीआर रेगुलेशंस के लिए मैं एक और सेमिनार रख लूंगा, क्योंकि जनरली सर हम लोग जो है 95% वो अनलिस्टेड में डील करते हैं, बट सम पीपल वांट टू नो अबाउट दी सेबी रेगुलेशंस, तो इसमें इशू ऑफ शेयर्स भी होता है, टेक ओवर कोड भी होता है, तो वो मैं अलग से आई टेक केयर
तो
ऑफ दीज क्वेरीज
आप
एंड
पहले अपनी पीपीटी कंप्लीट कर लीजिए,
श्योर।
बाद में फिर उसके हिसाब से देख लेंगे। अदरवाइज तो हमारा व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप तो लाइव
हाँ
रहेगा ही रहेगा, और
एंड
क्वेरीज चलती रहेंगी, ताकि एक बार हमारा कोर्स कंप्लीट हो जाए आज का।
डेफिनेटली सर।
प्लीज सर, प्लीज कंटिन्यू।
सो अब हम वी गोइंग टू टॉक अबाउट कि कोविड-19 का क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा वैल्यूएशंस पे। तो as we all know, this is an unprecedented time. मतलब nobody has ever seen something like this. People are comparing this COVID outbreak to the Great Depression. Even the financial meltdown of 2008 would look like peanuts in front of this. So, as a valuer, what will be the impact on the valuations of this COVID? So my question, when I will get a valuation assignment, and the valuation date would be, let's say, mid of March or mid of February, when I know that this COVID impact was there. So as a valuer, as a valuation professional, what will the questions that I'm going to ask? So first question that I'm going to ask myself is that how shall I make adjustments in the fair value in this epidemic? And how shall I value the unlisted companies at the time of COVID? Is it too early to quantify the impact of COVID? So what are the areas that I need to look into detail when I'm doing a valuation as on 31st of March or during this COVID impact? So any valuation done post February 2019 must have a note regarding the COVID, because iska impact aayega, there will be a significant impact depending on the industry. There can be a short term impact, there can be a long term impact. So I'll discuss the components. The first being there would be an impact on the fair value. So what is fair value? So fair value is defined as the price that would be received to sell an asset or paid to transfer a liability in an orderly transaction between market participants at the measurement date. So key components of fair value kya hai? First is the market participant assumptions. Second is the orderly transactions. Third is the measurement date. So while doing, let's take a practical example wherein I am engaged as a professional valuer to fair value the business of, let's say, a company that is engaged in, okay, FMCG industry. Okay, now my client, I'll share a very practical example with you of a recent valuation that I've done for a big FMCG company which was engaged in the US, primarily in the US. So that company has their operations in the US market, and they sell their goods through the e-commerce platform only. So surprisingly, the COVID-19 has a positive impact, has had a positive impact on their sales, because people now after the lockdown are ordering online through Amazon. In India, although it's shut down, but in the US, the Amazon is open and people are essentially ordering online everything. So there has been huge increase in traffic for such companies which are basically engaged in on the e-commerce platform, the FMCG sector specifically. So it is not necessary that the COVID will have a negative impact only on the valuation or my future cash flows. I can have a positive impact also, and these companies can their valuation can increase. But the question that you need to ask as valuers is that how much impact I need to take. So let's say if I am doing a valuation of, let's say, Zoom only. So you must have read in recent media articles that the Zoom has been valued at $42 billion. That there has been a sudden surge in Zoom applications post the COVID lockdown, and their revenues have quadrupled, even become 5 times, from $150 million to about $700 million in just a matter of 1 month. So will I, as a valuer, look at that sudden surge and just, based on that sudden surge, will I do a very, hockey stick valuation, or will I just increase the valuation manifold? If you ask my personal view, I would not do that. I would look at the short term impact and the long term impact on the valuation depending on the industry which you are in. Say, if I'm valuing this uh, Zoom company, then I will obviously I'll surely factor in the sudden surge, but then I will see the normalization also. So I'll do a valuation of projection of 5 years, wherein for the first 1 year I'll do a increase in the cash flow, but after that I'll normalize my earnings or even reduce my growth rate substantially, because I know that after the steep rise there will be a steep decline also in terms of the number of subscribers or the number of people who are going to use this. Once the lockdown opens, obviously lot less people would be using the Zoom application. So you need to carefully assess the industry that you are valuing. You need to assess your client. You need to see a comparable. While doing a comparable study, please make sure that you are not stuck on a historical analysis, because a historical analysis will give you a completely wrong picture, because the stock markets have plummeted by more than 40-50%. So let's say when I'm doing a valuation and my valuation date is 31st of March 2020. So as a valuer, whenever I get the valuation assignment, uh, I have I am giving the projected cash flows. So cash flows I'm going to discuss in detail, but let's say that cost of capital is completely my baby. I have to compute that cost of capital. That is my judgment entirety. Projections management से receive हो जाते हैं, उसमें there is lot of help from the management, but when it comes to cost of capital, that is entirely a valuer's call. So historically and right now also, the practice with most of the valuers is that they take a historical cost of capital when they are specifically calculating the RM. In that, we have seen that the valuers, they take a historical approach. Now if you've seen the fluctuation in the stock markets, so you will realize that a 40% or a 50%, or even in some industries a 60% variation or a fluctuation will give you a very wrong cost of capital. So you have to be futuristic while you're calculating your RMs. You cannot do a historical valuation, and you cannot do a historical cost of capital, an RM calculation. You have to look into the future. You have to see on the future projections how much my company is going to generate, how much in normalcy. So fair value definition, if I point out to again, in fair value talks about an orderly transaction and not a forced sale or a fire sale transaction. So if I am looking at this negatively, then obviously if I am in the auto industry, the auto component industry has reduced by more than 40%, 50%. So as a company, I will not take a 40% or a 50% discount in my valuation, because I know that this is temporary. So you have to, while applying the income approach, you have to see the cash flow assumptions. You have to see the industry. Let's say for a airline industry, tour and travel industry, I know that the cash flows are going to be severely impacted for at least 2 years. So I need to see the time to recovery. I need to see the industry, wherein vis-a-vis a cinema industry, I know that there will be no cash flows for, let's say, 6 months, because the government will keep the lockdown imposed on the cinema halls, on the movie business. But I know this demand is not going to be like this. Once the lockdown opens, once there is a vaccination in place, people will start going to the cinemas. People will start watching movies again. So after the 6 months time, I know that the demand will increase and the normalcy levels will come back. So I have to see the industry. Then I have to see the geography. I have to see which country am I doing the valuation for. Let's say if I'm doing a valuation of a company who is based in Italy, then obviously there will be a different cash flow projections. If I'm doing a valuation in India, in the hotspot, if my business is in the hotspot region, then I need to assess my cash flows differently. So valuation is a story, it's an art. You have to see your client, your industry, your geography. You have to consider all those approaches. Especially after the COVID-19, you cannot simply discount the impact of COVID while doing your valuations in this scenario, because it is not just impacted the Indian economy, but it's impacted the global economy. And if some experts are to be believed, this is going to be much worse than the Great Depression. And some are very optimistic. So in the recent month, in the past month of the lockdown only, I've been engaged in 2-3 valuation assignments which regarding the FMCG sector. So it's not all negative. So some industries like Netflix, Hotstar, I mean, they are raising money and their valuations have quadrupled because of this lockdown. So it depends on which industry you are valuing, preparing the valuation report for. You need to do, you need to assess what will be the time to recovery. What you need to do a sensitivity analysis, that what if the lockdown continues for 1 quarter, how much will be my revenue, uh, what will be my cost, what if the lockdown continues for more than 1 quarter, because the lockdown in most all likelihood might come in for a phase 2. We might see another lockdown being put into place after this first round, because we are seeing resurgence of cases, COVID cases in China again. So all these factors might increase your cost of capital, might decrease your cost of capital. So you have to analyze each industry wide. It is cannot be a generalized valuation approach for every kind of industry. Every industry, every client needs to be looked into much more detail and much more strictly when you are doing a valuation. So please be very, very careful as valuers that an impact of COVID, be it short term or long term, has to be there in your cash flow assumptions, in your cost of capital, in your market assumptions. Everywhere you have to take it, and a note has to be there, be it a positive impact or a negative impact. If you are not taking that, then you will not be giving or issuing a correct valuation report, and that may severely impact your client or your organization also. So as auditors also who are following the Ind AS valuations, please, when you go through the valuation reports during this COVID period, please make sure that the valuers have, taken the impact of COVID in their cash flow assumptions, in their cost of capitals. So for cash flow assumptions, you need to basically segregate your cash flows into revenue, cost, working capital, leverages. You need to see the short term and long term impact. You need to see the customer behavior, the customer confidence. You have to see your supply chain. Now, post COVID, there has been a massive supply chain disruption, especially for people who are totally dependent on China as their raw material supplier. In India, we see that the electronics industry, they primarily depend upon China as their primary source of raw material supplier. The PCBA, the motherboards, all those things, they come from China. In India is primarily an assembly unit. So because of this lockdown, you need to see whether how much is going to be there, disruption in the supply chain. How is that going to increase the cost of procurement in future, the labor shortages, what are the government policies that are going to come in. So all these things need to be looked at in totality while we are doing a valuation assignment, especially in COVID period. In addition to this, you need to see the government stimulus, the government packages. All those things need to be looked into detail. For cost of capital, again, as I said, you should not look at the historical approach. You should go for a forward approach. In this scenario, I know it's very difficult to calculate the risk on market, the RMs, in terms of the futuristic approach. So you can verify, you can take help of Ashwath Damodaran's database, who is considered the father of valuation. You can refer to Duff and Phelps. All these guys have done tremendous work, and they have recalculated their RMs taking the COVID impact. But again, there is no rule of thumb when it comes to valuation. You can take your own RMs, but a historical cost of capital approach would give a wrong picture, and I would support that you do a futuristic RM calculation. So this sums up all my income approach. On the market approach, I would say you need to look at the current market multiples, whether they are reflecting the long-term fair value, whether the shares are actively traded, what is a maintainable revenue, what is a short-term, long-term impact. So all these things would be need to be looked into deeper detail. You need to analyze the industry. You need to break your cash flows into revenue, cost, working capital, leverages. So with the COVID coming in, you will obviously see that there will be industries which are now completely shut down. So their working capital cycles will increase. Now the money that will be realized from debtors, the industry which was realizing in 3 months, now it will realize in 6 months, maybe 12 months. There may be a lot of bad debts. In China, I was reading an article that more than 2.5 lakh companies filed for insolvency. Norwegian Airlines, they fired, I think, 95% of the employees. Marriott has laid off 10,000 more employees. So in India right now, we don't know that how much is going to be the impact, how much the industry, each industry is going to look at, how COVID is going to impact, what is going to be the government packages, how is the government going to respond. So each industry will have to be looked into differently. Each client will have to be looked into differently. Each time of recovery for each client would be different. So you need to see a comparable, you need to study the markets, you need to see when will that fluctuation, that volatility stabilize. Basis that, you need to prepare your valuations and you need to review your valuations also. So as auditors or as valuation professionals, all these factors must be taken into consideration, and we cannot now do a valuation in isolation without taking an impact of COVID. So with this, I think I would sum up my COVID-19 impact. Although I can go on and on this, but I think then I'll have to take another session as to specifically discuss the each and every industry, because each and every industry will have a different impact.
प्रणव जी, फिर अब क्वेश्चन आंसर ले लें, अभी रहता है थोड़ा.
हाँ सर.
आपका कंप्लीट हो गया पीपीटी?
सर मेरा हो गया.
तो क्वेश्चन आंसर ले लेते हैं सर.
श्योर.
तो पहले Q&A का लेते हैं. रूप कुमार जी की क्वेरी है सर.
सर मैंने रूप कुमार जी को बोला है कि जो सेबी आईसीडीआर रेगुलेशंस हैं वो मैं उनसे, उसमें टेक ओवर कोड भी होता है, इशू ऑफ शेयर्स भी होता है, तो दैट आई विल टेक विद हिम सेपरेटली, बिकॉज यहाँ पे जनरली लोग अनलिस्टेड कंपनीज के लिए ज्यादा करते हैं, तो वो वैल्यूएशन रिक्वायरमेंट्स रिगार्डिंग सेबी आईसीडीआर रेगुलेशंस आई विल टेक अप विद हिम सेपरेटली.
ठीक है सर. ये नितिन कपूर जी की क्वेरी है. Is it possible to prepare your presentation in an Excel sheet to facilitate comparison under various acts requirements?
Sir, Excel sheet, I'll try and summarize it. I'll try to अपनी टीम को बोल के I'll try and summarize कि कहाँ पे valuation requirements हैं. वैसे मैंने काफी deliberate कर दिया है इस पे, so I think अब issue आना नहीं चाहिए नितिन सर को. But
I'll try and फिर व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में तो है ही आप भी, तो
हाँ, I'll try and summarize all these regulatory provisions और कहाँ requirement है. I'll try and do that. So give me a week's time for that.
ठीक है सर. रूप कुमार जी का ही है क्वेश्चन. सेबी
आईसीडीआर का सर वो मैं उनसे अलग से कर लूंगा कोऑर्डिनेट.
ठीक है सर. नेक्स्ट वीक का शेड्यूल बना लेंगे आपका.
श्योर.
For derivation of fair market value of private limited company as on 31st March 2020 and having huge investment in equity market, how to proceed with its valuation in case they want to distribute profits to its shareholders?
So इसमें जैसे मैंने बोला सर, फेयर मार्केट वैल्यू निकालने के लिए हमें प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी कौन से सेक्टर में है, कौन सी इंडस्ट्री में है, उसके क्या रेवेन्यू ड्राइवर्स हैं, क्या कॉस्ट ड्राइवर्स हैं, वो देखना पड़ेगा. कोविड का इम्पैक्ट कैसे आएगा, उसकी सप्लाई चेन क्या है, वर्किंग कैपिटल साइकिल क्या है, तो इसको इन डेप्थ एनालाइज करना पड़ेगा. क्योंकि प्राइवेट लिमिटेड कंपनी कौन से सेक्टर में है, ह्यूज इन्वेस्टमेंट्स इक्विटी मार्केट्स में है, अब उनका इंटेंशन क्या है, उसको होल्ड करेंगे या सेल करेंगे, क्योंकि कौन से इक्विटी मार्केट्स में है, अगर नैस्डैक में है तो वहाँ पॉजिटिव है, कौन से सेक्टर्स में इन्वेस्टमेंट है, एफएमसीजी में है, ऑटो में है, तो उसको मतलब डीपली एनालाइज करना पड़ेगा इसको एज अ स्पेसिफिक क्वेरी। आई थिंक यहाँ पे आंसर मैं नहीं कर पाऊंगा बिकॉज काफी ज्यादा ब्रॉड है।
तो इनसे रिक्वेस्ट करें कि ये व्हाट्सएप पे डाल दें या मेल
हाँ,
पे
ये
कर दें,
व्हाट्सएप पे डाल दें या बेसिकली ये
आपको पर्सनल
समझिए कि
ईमेल कर देंगे।
एफएमवी, जो एफएमवी है सर, वही प्राइवेट लिमिटेड हो चाहे पब्लिक लिमिटेड हो, सबके वैल्यूएशन प्रिंसिपल्स वही रहते हैं कि
ठीक बात
इनकम
है
अप्रोच, कॉस्ट अप्रोच, मार्केट अप्रोच। तो
जी सर।
आपको वहां पे एनालाइज करना पड़ेगा, कंपनी वाइज, इंडस्ट्री वाइज कंपेरेबल लेने पड़ेंगे, कोविड का इम्पैक्ट देना पड़ेगा, वो सब चीजें लेनी पड़ेंगी, तब जाके आप एफएमवी निकालेंगे।
ठीक है सर। ये राजीव सिंगला जी की क्वेरी है, हाउ इम्पैक्ट ऑफ कोविड-19 ऑन फार्मा बीइंग पॉजिटिव एज सेल्स आर गोइंग अप ट्रेमेंडसली।
हाँ, तो इसमें राजीव जी को मैं कहूंगा कि जो कोविड-19 है, अभी फार्मा सेल्स इंक्रीज हो रही है, बट ये एक साइकिल जो है ये 6 महीने या 1 साल ही रहेगा। जब हम वैल्यूएशन करते हैं तब हम 5 साल या 10 साल की प्रोजेक्शन लेके चलते हैं, तो नो डाउट अभी ये साइक्लिक 1 साल 2 साल सेल्स अप रहेंगी, पॉजिटिव रहेंगी, तो उसका हम इम्पैक्ट लेंगे। उसके लिए हम कंपेरेबल स्टडी करेंगे, हम फाइजर की रिपोर्ट देखेंगे, हम और जो रैनबैक्सी की रिपोर्ट है वो देखेंगे, जो लिस्टेड कंपेरेबल्स हैं, जब वो अपनी एनुअल रिपोर्ट पब्लिश करेंगे। तो वैल्यूएशन करना, इसमें हमें इंडस्ट्री को एनालाइज करना पड़ता है स्पेसिफिक। हम एक किसी भी कंपनी को हम करते हैं तो उसके कंपेरेबल्स को देखना पड़ता है, कोविड का क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा उसका देखना पड़ेगा, तो एक साइकिल पे हमें एनालाइज करना पड़ेगा, फिर उसके बेसिस पे हमें फेयर वैल्यू निकालनी पड़ेगी।
जी सर। गौरव जी गुप्ता जी ने सिर्फ, ब्रिजेंद्र जी की क्वेरी है, सर व्हाट विल बी द इम्पैक्ट ऑफ कोविड-19 ऑन वैल्यूएशन ऑफ फिक्स्ड एसेट्स डेप्रिसिएशन एज एट 31st March 2019 एंड एप्रोप्रिएट डिस्क्लोजर इन अकाउंट्स।
सर ये आई थिंक ये प्लांट एंड मशीनरी के वैल्यूअर जो हैं वो बेटर इक्विप्ड होंगे इसकी आंसर करने के लिए, क्योंकि मैं एसएफए वैल्यूअर हूँ। फिक्स्ड एसेट्स में मेनली प्लांट एंड मशीनरी आती है और लैंड एंड बिल्डिंग आती है। तो अब उसका इम्पैक्ट कोविड-19 पे उस मशीन पे कैसे आया, जैसे सपोज करिए आपकी मशीन थी और वो रनिंग मशीन थी, अब वो बंद हो गई कोविड के वजह से, तो अब उसको रीस्टार्ट करने में क्या कॉस्ट आएगी, क्या खर्चे होंगे, उसकी एफिशिएंसी पे क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा, वो असेंबली लाइन पे क्या इम्पैक्ट आएगा। आई थिंक एक प्लांट एंड मशीनरी वैल्यूअर इनको बेटर एनालाइज करके बता पाएगा, क्योंकि उनका फील्ड है ये, वो इंजीनियर्स होते हैं, दे विल बी एबल टू असेस कि मेरी यूजफुल लाइफ जो है फिक्स एसेट्स की या लैंड एंड बिल्डिंग की, वो कोविड की वजह से कितना इम्पैक्ट आता है उसकी यूजफुल लाइफ पे।
जी सर। और ये चैट में क्वेरी है सर हमारी, what about categories of valuers as per asset class? Any comment on proposed National Institute of Valuation? इसके बारे में थोड़ा सा बता दीजिए सर।
सर ड्राफ्ट वैल्यूअर्स बिल आया तो है, इस पे मैंने भी अभी बहुत ध्यान से नहीं पढ़ा है, बट जितना मेरे को आइडिया है कि वो एक वैल्यूएशन इंस्टीट्यूट सेटअप करने की बात कर रहे हैं। उसमें जो एग्जिस्टिंग आरवीओज हैं वो खत्म होके जो वैल्यूएशन इंस्टीट्यूट जो एमसीए सेटअप करेगा उसके तहत जो है, जैसे हम आईसीआई की डिग्री है वैसे एक वैल्यूएशन की डिग्री हो जाएगी। तो अलग अलग एसेट क्लास के जो भी एग्जिस्टिंग रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर्स होंगे वो पहले एसोसिएट वैल्यूअर्स बन जाएंगे एज पर द एक्ट, और फिर एक पर्टिकुलर एग्जाम क्लियर करने के बाद या कुछ कोर्स करने के बाद, एक ड्यूरेशन स्पेंड करने के बाद ही वो एक रजिस्टर्ड वैल्यूअर फिर बन पाएंगे। जब तक ये ट्रांजिशनरी प्रोविजन चलेगा तब तक जो एग्जिस्टिंग एसेट क्लास के वैल्यूअर्स हैं वो एज पर जो रेगुलेटरी प्रोविजंस हमने जो भी डिस्कस किया उसके हिसाब से वैल्यूएशन करते रहेंगे। जब
और इवन सुनने में तो ये आया था कि इवन जो नया ये इंस्टीट्यूट बन रहा है इसके अंदर सीए, सीएस और आईसीडब्ल्यू इंस्टीट्यूट को तो पार्टिसिपेट ही नहीं करवाया इन लोगों ने। ये
सर
बिल्कुल
मेरे को
इंडिपेंडेंट,
इसलिए आइडिया नहीं है क्योंकि ये जो है आईबीबीआई के साथ में और आरवीओस के साथ में कंसल्टेशंस चल रही हैं, तो जो ड्राफ्ट वैल्यूअर बिल है वो आईबीबीआई ने ही प्रपोज किया था और ये स्टार्ट तो आई थिंक 2008 में हुआ था, बट अभी
जी
इसने शेप लिया है। तो 2020 का जो ड्राफ्ट वैल्यूअर्स बिल है वो जो अभी प्रपोज्ड फॉर्म में है वो देखते हैं कैसे टर्न अप करते हैं, क्योंकि इंडिया में अभी भी वैल्यूएशन प्रोफेशनल्स बहुत कम है। जैसे
जी
मैंने बताया था कि एसएफए वैल्यूअर्स भी अभी इंडिया में नॉट मोर देन आई थिंक 1000 होंगे, उसमें भी जो वैल्यूएशन में एंगेज्ड हैं वो 100 से ऊपर नहीं है।
जी
तो अभी बहुत टाइम लगेगा इसको मैच्योर होने में, वैल्यूएशन को एज अ प्रोफेशन मैच्योर होने में। उसके बाद ही कुछ कह सकेंगे कि क्या इसमें इंस्टीट्यूट की कितनी इन्वॉल्वमेंट होगी।
जी सर। सर आपका मोबाइल नंबर, ईमेल आईडी लिखा हुआ नहीं है शायद, इस पे पीपीटी पे
हाँ,
लिखा
मैं
हुआ है।
एक बारी वो स्लाइड शेयर कर देता हूँ सर।
और ईमेल आईडी शायद साफ नजर नहीं आ रहा है, एक बार बोल दीजिए आप।
pranav.goel@rkaap.com। मैं पहली वाली स्लाइड शेयर कर देता हूँ, उसमें बेटर आ जाएगा आपकी। मैं व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे भी अपनी ईमेल आईडी डाल दूंगा।
हाँ ये साफ है।
हाँ
तो सभी मेंबर से रिक्वेस्ट है कि आप प्रणव जी का ईमेल आईडी, मोबाइल नंबर प्लीज नोट कर लीजिए। कोई भी आपकी क्वेरीज है आप प्लीज ईमेल कर सकते हैं, और हमारे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में भी प्रणव जी हैं, आपको कोशिश करें कि सारी क्वेरीज का आपको रिप्लाई दें। और अभी मेरे ख्याल और तो कोई क्वेरी बची नहीं है, तो फिर नेक्स्ट
सर,
वीक कोई।
कंक्लूड करने के लिए बस मैं ये बोलूंगा कि वैल्यूएशन जो है वो आर्ट है, कुछ भी राइट या रॉन्ग नहीं है वैल्यूएशन के अंदर।
जी
तो आपकी क्योंकि इतनी प्रोफेशनल जजमेंट इन्वॉल्व है इसमें, आप फ्यूचर प्रोजेक्शंस बना रहे हैं, तो कोई भी ये नहीं कह सकता कि ये वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट गलत है और ये वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट सही है,
जी
अनलेस एंड अनटिल आपके जो बेसिस है, आपके जो अजम्पशंस हैं वो ठीक है या नहीं। तो अनलेस एंड अनटिल आपके बेसिस अजम्पशंस वो ठीक लिए गए हैं, आपके जस्टिफाइड हैं, तो आपकी वैल्यूएशन सही है। जरूरी नहीं कि दूसरा वैल्यूअर जो कर रहा है उसकी वैल्यू अगर अलग आ रही है तो आपकी वैल्यूएशन रिपोर्ट गलत हो जाती
जी। तो और मेंबर्स कोई क्वेरी है तो आप प्लीज Q&A में डाल दीजिए या चैट में डाल दीजिए, अदरवाइज इसको अपने क्लोज करते हैं। और अदरवाइज व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में तो हम लोग कंटिन्यू रहेंगे, ये आपस में डिस्कशन रहेगा।
है। श्योर।
So with these, I am thankful to CA Pranav Goel ji for a wonderful deliberation on the evaluation, and I am also thankful to Devang Sharma ji, our technical support person, uh, and I am thankful to Jeenat also for supporting and making this program. So Pranav ji, please इसको अब recording को close कर दीजिएगा।
थैंक यू।
Thank you friends.
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
Thank you.
रिकॉर्डिंग आपको अवेलेबल हो जाएगी सर?
ठीक है सर, कब कल मिल जाएगी?
बिल्कुल सर, कल मिल जाएगी।
थैंक यू सर।
सर आई होप सही रहा ये सेमिनार।
बहुत सुंदर, बहुत बढ़िया सर, थैंक यू सर।
बहुत अच्छा रहा सर, मजा आया। मैं भी था ऑल टाइम, सुन के मुझे
जी
भी
सर,
बहुत अच्छा लगा। थैंक यू।
थैंक यू सर, थैंक यू।
ठीक है, थैंक यू।
ओके सर, बाय।
ओके।